episode of the Python Guide series. Today we shall be covering the define function. So, what is the define function? Well, the define function, as you can see, it's appeared here. It allows you to set things to a kind of string. So, let's say that we defined uh, hello, hello world. So, all you need to do is just what def, which stands for define hello world, and then like with an if and else statement, you put a colon at the end, and also you need to put a brackets after that. And you can see that if you're using VS Code or any Python, ideally, except for the inbuilt Python one, you'll see that it will turn yellow or a different color, whatever color that has been chosen. And let's see that we just say print hello world. Now, if we run that, you can see that nothing happened. And that's because this is a function. So you can make functions. So hello world. So hello world is now a function. So but right now we aren't running that function, are we? We've just defined it. But so it's not going to do anything, is it? So what we're going to do is type in hello world and put in the brackets. And you can see that it just briefly said, yep, there it said define hello world. So that shows that it has been defined. So now if we do it, if we run, you can see that it's printed hello world. So it has ran that function that we have defined earlier. It has ran that function when we've typed this in. And just like with that, we can make another function. We could do define what define, let's say, name, and then it imports what is your name, and then we can just put hello world, and then we can also do name. So it will run name. If we try that, you can see it now. It's asked what is our name. We can write uh code, and yeah, it doesn't really do anything with the name right now. We could even make another one. Define print name. I think we can all do that. You already know what that will do if we just print name. Oops, and I forgot to run that. Let me just quickly rerun that. So print name. Okay, so if we rerun that, and you can see it asks what our name is. Let's put her code, and you can see function name at okay, that was not meant to happen. Oh, that may be because look, it says function name. I think it may just be because we actually named that thing itself name. So then if we just put user name out of literary username, something that I have not ever actually experienced before. We just run that again. We just type in dot there, her code, and it's given us an error. Name username is not defined. Yeah, I don't think you can do that because you can see that it actually if defined that, but it doesn't know what username is yet because it's not been defined when you first define it. You just said print username, but it can't do that right then. So I think we're just gonna have to, instead of doing that, we're just gonna have to do print user name. Yeah, That should work. So if we just run that, not there, RT code, username is not defined. Try global username. I don't know I'm going this far, but I just feel like it. Basically what, yeah, you learn about global a bit further on in this series, but yeah, you can see that now it works. I'll teach global a little bit further on because it's a little bit more complicated, and that will be when we start handling a bit more of these kind of errors. So for now I'm just gonna destroy all of this code. So now, so that's basically one. So we can have define, yes, that's one thing that you can do with this. Define hello. Yes, you can just, but you might wondering why do we have these brackets here? And that is because we can actually put things inside them. So let's say that we just defined add. So what this is, you can put in arguments. So you may notice that it may say args, quarks, it may say something like that. That means that you could actually add arguments in it. So we could have, let's say you want this function to add two numbers. You could have num1 and num2. And those are basically variables. Num1 and num2 are going to be the variables. And I'll show you how that works. So then if we just say print num1 plus num2, then if we just say add, then if we just do something like that, then you can see that it says missing two required positional arguments. And also you may notice there's a pop-up that's come up. You can see that it says add, and then we actually have two arguments inside this. We have num1 and num2. These are called arguments because they are basically little variables that you can add into them. Add into functions and lots of other things as well. Even print statements are also made of arguments. If I just said print num1 comma hello or whatever, then that would be argument number one, that would be argument number two. So arguments are used so many places, and we need to add in those arguments because otherwise it doesn't know what to do, because it doesn't have these arguments, so it can't print anything, and that is it just returns a function and gives this error, type error add or whatever your function or something is missing two required positional arguments, num1 and num2. And you can see that we even got this pop that said num1 comma num2. And so now what we can do, we have to add in two arguments. Okay, so we can add in two arguments, and now it should give us three. See, so it's basically another way of doing that kind of stuff. So you can see that we have two arguments that we've put in. We can change these arguments. We could even maybe make them inputs even, really. Let's say uh, arg arg1 is equal to integer, because remember in the covered inputs we actually realize that inputs always put it in string format. Input your first number. Okay, and we remember, and we actually realize that inputs always format, whatever you put in an input, it's always put in a string format, which is why we need to declare it as an integer, because otherwise, as we covered in that episode and the previous episode, or I think it was the previous episode, we did inputs, we discovered that if we did num1 plus num2 and they were both strings, then it would become, if we just did 1 plus 2 but they were both strings, then it will become 12. It will become 1 2 next to each other, and that's not what we want, right? So I'm just going to do that for both. There we go. And now we can just change these out to arg1 and arg2. There we go. Okay, and now you can see, although it's surely not the most well amazing use of this. Oops, I accidentally put a minus. Although this is surely not the most amazing use, it might be seeming a little bit useless right now, and because it is actually making this a lot bigger, we could instead just have print arg1 plus arg2, but it can be very useful, especially in sometimes in larger programs. You might want to have something run multiple times. Okay, so for example, if I just open up my Pokemon game, which I made, which is currently my longest one, you can see that I've used the defines right here to make PM8. And I'm not going to go through all of this, but you can see that that has saved me so much time. Look, we have one right there, we have that, we have that right there, and imagine having all of this code, every single, all of these ones have it. Imagine how much space that would take up. So in some things like this, it can be extremely useful because you don't have to copy and paste that code in every single one. Now, because this episode has been going quite quickly, a bit quicker than I actually thought it would be. It's only 11 minutes. So I think we're actually going to cover while loops. Now, I'm probably not going to go through absolutely everything about while loops, but although they are quite simple. So, if we just comment that out, uh, comment, then we can cover while loops. Now, while loops are our first type of loop in this entire thing, in this series. Loops are something that if you've been in any other coding language, Scratch, anything, you will come across loops. Loops are something that run a code more than once. So if we just put while, so you just say while, and then you need to have a variable. Okay, or of course you could use numbers. So you could have while 1 is equal to 1, which is, I mean, that's always going to be true, although most of the time you'd use variables. So before the while loop, so let's say that were making a game and some guy had hearts, so you probably put like player 1 hearts or something equals 100 or whatever. So you probably have, because you don't want the game to go on after. You don't want the game to keep on looping around after he has less hearts, so you do something like while player 1 hearts is greater than, let's say, 1, and that would carry on looping while that is greater than 1. So if we just put a print, let's just say player 1 alive or something, then you will see that it just loops on forever, and it is, so you can see just about that it is just looping on forever and forever. Yeah. So this is basically a forever loop. If you've been in Scratch, this is basically how to make a forever loop. But what if our player 1 hearts, he wanted it, what if he didn't want this to go on forever? Because you probably don't want your game to go on forever, and that would probably be extremely laggy if that was actually the case. And it seems uh okay, what has happened? Window is no longer responding. Okay, let's just try reopening. um yeah, okay. Okay, it's reopened. Yeah, so the window is not responding. Apparently, I don't know. Maybe the forever loop may have crashed the window. Okay. Yeah, that's the other reason. I said that it will cause lag, and yes, it does surely cause lag. So while player 1 heart is created, let's say that you don't want the game to go on forever, which is probably the case. You don't want You don't want to just crash your computer or crash your app or whatever you're using, just like what happened to me just then. You want it to stop, don't you? And that's what one amazing thing. So let's say that we actually equals player on hearts equals player on hearts minus 1. So that will mean that each time that we run this loop, it will decrease the amount of hearts that the player has by 1. Actually, for example, let me just do 10 or actually 20. Because if I did 1, then if using some simple maths, you would realize it will run 100 times. And that would be it. Stop. How about we start off with 20? So it should run 5 times this time. Yeah, so you can see I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's exactly what we wanted. Then you can also, yeah. So that's how while loops work. So you can use them in lots of different cases. Because it is run exactly 5 times. Now, because each time that is increasing by 20, this basically it will keep on looping around as long as the statement inside the while loop is true. It just basically it will keep running. It'll keep looping around running. Yeah. So this is basically like an if statement. Basically, this while is a if statement that keeps on going on. Well, what it's doing is it's checking if that player on hearts is greater than 1, then it will run that. And then it'll loop back around and see again whether it is greater than 1. And if it is, then it will loop back around. Then I think that's it for this episode. Yes, it's about 17 minutes long. Yeah, and I think that's it. Next episode, we'll hopefully be covering a few more things about the wire statements and a few maybe more things, maybe some lists and stuff. But for now, that's going to be it from me. Expect another episode to come out soon, and goodbye.